beautiful people, and welcome back to the channel. And let me stop you right here before I go any further. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. You're going to love it. Another great conversation that I'm having. And you know the man, Coach Mike James, you know the brand, PNZ Life Coach. And I'm back again with another impactful conversations. Thank you to everyone who's watched any single episode of Impactful Conversations, Black Business Booming, my doves of the day, anything that you've done here on my channel. I appreciate you. Tell a friend about it. I have another one today. I often talk about family. You'll hear me say my Convoz fam or my Birmingham fam or my UAB fam, but also my next level Speakers Academy fam. I have another dope guest. I've had my big bro Seneca on here, and I have another amazing guest that's just from the time, I think the first time I saw you on one of the Sunday calls, like just stood out, like literally a light. So it's instantly one of those things, and what you're doing now, which we'll talk about, is just one of those. I was looking forward to having you on here. So I'm going to give you a chance, sis. Without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are, and anything else that you want to share to start out.
Good morning. Good morning. First and foremost, thank you so much, Coach Mike. I genuinely, greatly appreciate your love and just the opportunity to be on your platform with impactful conversations. We do know each other from Next Level Speakers Academy, and I can say my life has indefinitely changed for the better. And it's had such an impact and influence in my life, and I'm so excited to transition into this next chapter. And I am honored to be a guest on your show today. Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth. I am the face behind I Am Shin, and my full name is Elizabeth Shin. I come from the Pacific Northwest, so I'm joining you today from the Pacific Northwest.
Awesome. So great. Love the many connections I make with so many people. And also I love when you have a name that you could just do something awesome with. So I Am Shin. That's just so amazing. It's perfect, especially for what you do. So is it okay if I call you Liz? It's what I know you by, of course. Okay.
Sure, you could do that. So thank you for asking.
Yes, definitely. Because people meet in social media spaces, right? And different virtual spaces, and they just assume like, hold up. Maybe my family only calls me there or whatever. So just wanted to make sure. So appreciate it. So Liz, Impactful Conversations, these are, it's just a different level of talking and conversing with the people that I have on here. So I always start off the same way. So tell everybody a little bit about Liz, your upbringing, your background, your early life and upbringing.
Hello to everybody. I am from Seattle, Washington. Seattle is way out there on the West Coast, just a little south of Canada and north of California. I often tell people that the left coast is the best coast. It's very beautiful. I was born and raised here. I technically am an only child, but I do have some older half siblings that were in and out of my life, that are still in and out of my life. But in the house, I was pretty much the only child growing up. And so the street that I grew up on, my parents had lived on that street for many years after I left and before I was born. So it was a little tiny neighborhood with some kids. And so they were like my brothers and sisters or my cousins, if you know what I mean. I've known them since birth, and we're still very close to this day. I transitioned from the West Coast and made a huge leap and ended up in Brooklyn and Philadelphia when I was 16, and I started college out there. So I ended up coming back to Seattle about 6 years ago, and I will always be a very proud Seattle girl. And so the Pacific Northwest is just home for me, but I've traveled all around the world and I love Seattle. Like, I will always tell you how much I love Seattle. It has truly given me an opportunity to just be happy. I love not just the city, but the environment here. It's naturally beautiful. And so it brings me a lot of peace, and I just enjoy that aspect of where I'm from.
Awesome. It's a beautiful thing because you would think that it's everyone, but everyone is not like proud of where they're from and that upbringing. So I love when people have that pride, no matter where it is. So that's a beautiful that journey too, even to go off, right, and then come back home. That's different. Like it makes a huge impact when you do go somewhere else and then you come back to where it all started. So that's amazing. So as you think about being from the Pacific Northwest and that journey, right, to the East Coast and then going back and just your childhood and growing up, what were some impactful things for you growing up, or some things that stood out in your life that maybe had an impact even to who you are today?
A few things had an impact. So we'll talk about culture. So I'm half Korean, and my family is spread out all across the US. My father comes from a relatively large family, and my mom comes from a medium sized family. And so, one of the things that I personally love, even to this day, is food and travel. And so, growing up, I never got on an airplane with my parents. We always took road trips everywhere. And my parents were older when they had me. And so, my father was pretty much self employed. So, summer vacations, spring breaks, we took off, got in the car, and went to wherever. And so we spent a lot of time visiting family. And so I learned the skills of maintaining long distance relationships from a very early age. We had visitors who would come from Korea or other parts of the country, and the Seattle pride would kick in. We would always take them to the Space Needle or the Pike Place Market or to the Mount Rainier. Recently, I found a journal I wrote in first grade about why I love my mom so much. And it was talking about going hiking with her, going to Mount Rainier, going, digging clams and going out and catching seafood of different kinds, whether fishing or shrimp or grabbing crabs. And so it was like all these childhood things really stuck with me and carried with me as an adult. Um, I'm very outdoorsy. I love nature. I love all of those aspects. Um, my next door neighbor, very, very influential family in my life, in many aspects, and I'll get into it in a moment. But they were from Baton Rouge. They lived about three doors down, and they have a son and daughter that their daughter's about 2 years younger than me, and their son's about 4.5 years younger than me. They had a niece and nephew that lived right around the corner up the street, about a mile away. And if you line up all five of us, we're like stairs. So I look at them as my brother and sister and cousins, and we're very close to this day. But I was exposed to soul food by the time I was 3. So growing up on my plate, I had Korean food and soul food. So as I got older and started traveling, people were like, where did your palate come from? And it came from the dinner tables that I was blessed to be able to be a part of at a very young age. So in every culture, all of my friends out here are interracial. So to me, that was the normal. I never knew what race was. I never knew what being one race was or identifying as one thing. But every time I went to a different person's house, there was always boys and girls. So I've played with the opposite gender my entire life. It was very normal to have relationships with men and women since the sandbox, honestly. But everybody out here is interracial. And that was just the norm for me. So we would eat all kinds of different foods. And I grew up loving to travel. I grew up very curious about other people's cultures. And I grew up not knowing what race was. So that's where my childhood still impacts who I am today and has enabled me to really build long lasting relationships with people and connect with different members of the community. But there was some very significant situations that took place in my childhood that have actually propelled the platform that I'm on now. And I am a survivor of ancestral child sex abuse. And that took place when I was a young child. And every pillar of my community is the reason I was able to survive, graduate from high school, start college, and have that journey. But part of the reason that I ended up leaving this area was I needed to be free. I needed to see something. I needed to get away from the quote unquote pain and dysfunction and challenges that were here. a lot of people know what sex abuse is, they know what child sex abuse is, but a lot of people don't talk about ancestral child sex abuse
Yeah.
and the complications that occur when the victim and the person that touched them inappropriately or harmed them, the abuser, as some may call them, how that dynamic is a everlasting impact. It doesn't go away because they're your family. So every holiday meal, every graduation, wedding, funeral, birth, party, there's some type of residual impact that's there. And so that awkward, what do I say? What do I do? The elephant just grows. And next thing you know, you have a herd of elephants. So no one can get past that because we're not taught anything about it. So that was probably the largest impact that I had in my life, aside from also being hit by a car in front of those neighbors I was mentioning. Those were very two pivotal points in my life because they're traumatic. You experience trauma. One was more physical, the other one was definitely a form of psychological, verbal, and sexual. And until I was an adult processing those things, I didn't realize how much those two things impacted who I am and have completely driven what I've chosen to do in my life.
Wow. Yeah, that it's amazing to hear more of the story, which is why I love these conversations, right? Because when you hear more of the story, the passion that you see now makes sense, right? And even you talked about the culture and the upbringing and how it was coming up from what you saw. It shows today now because, in my opinion, in the short time I've known you, I look at you and it's like, man, you're comfortable in any room, and your passion and your energy that jumps through. It's certain people who have a passion and energy that jumps through the screen, whatever it is, whatever space you're in with that person. And so hearing that, it is amazing. And it's like you connect the dots. And of course, something we'll talk about, but just seeing what you've been doing lately too and getting more of your story and personality, it's been amazing. So thank you for sharing that as well. So as you think to those things now, and moving forward, I guess what does you talked about kind of the culture in your community and helping you get to that point. So as an adult and you look back and even now, what does community mean to you?
Community has a lot of meaning, so I can bring it full circle for you. My community is still the community that I live in now, but coming back as an adult and acknowledging and being educated on the change, I had to have, like, people had to check me and explain to me the change here in Seattle. Seattle is still the same environment I grew up. It's still naturally beautiful. It's still one of the most just iconic places in America for certain things like volcanoes and the ocean and the whales and the salmon and the natural beauty. But the actual community has completely shifted. And that cut differently for me because I didn't understand. So I went from Seattle to New York. I left the morning after I graduated high school at the age of 16. And I left the country and I started traveling. I immediately jumped aboard an Amtrak train, played spades in the smoking car for 2 days, stayed awake. I just had my tonsils taken out, so I couldn't fly. And I went straight to Dallas, Texas to meet a mentor, a friend that I had worked with in a program in high school. And then I went to Mexico on a caravan and then ended up in Cuba. I came back to the United States and I had an opportunity to go left or go right. But that whole summer, from the day I left until now, all I've done is traveled. And so when I think of community, my experiences have allowed me to have a different perspective. Community is something that you can choose. You can choose the links. You can choose the people in your pillars. You can choose the people that help pour that foundation and build that foundation. You personally control that because each one of us, no matter how we identify, statistically, we fall into many subgroups of different forms of community, whether that's based on our social economic status, our gender, our race, our religion, what our parents did or did not do, what schools we went to, whether we went to an Ivy League school, whether we went to a junior college, whether we went to an alternative school, whether or not you graduated or not. These are all different forms of community. But I like to think of community as something that I can pull upon and draw resources from to be grateful for the life experiences that I acquired while being a part of many communities, and B, to be able to give that back. So coming back to Seattle, I mentioned I was in a car accident when I was hit by a car. I was actually physically hit by a car crossing the street on my bicycle about a block from my house. I remember being on the backboard for hours while they x-rayed my entire body. I was a trauma patient 3 times at the trauma center here before I left home because I was a tomboy. I ran around. I was a tomboy, always getting into stuff. And back then, I don't know if you've ever had an x-ray, they would take a picture and you have to hold still. Well, I'm not sure how old you are, but I was a tomboy. I've broken a few bones, but I've had tons of x-rays. I never knew that you actually had to wait for that film to get developed for each and every picture. So when you're on a backboard as a child, you're like
Right.
screaming, like, did you forget about me? It's ice cold. Well, currently I'm a CT technologist. So I also work in diagnostic imaging. And I'm the next level of imaging. I work as a CT tech. So after your x-rays, they send you over to us. And so those experiences have allowed me to relate to my patients, to understand what it's like to be afraid, to understand what it's like not to know, why is it taking forever? Why does 1 second feel like 1 minute and 1 minute feels like 10 years? And so now I've been able to bring that skill set back to my community. I got trained at a trauma center in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is 1.7 million people. Seattle was nowhere near that size. Philadelphia is a very interracial community, but there's a lot of prejudice presently still there and racism that has deep, deep roots. I never experienced any of that until I left home. And so being interracial, I was like, what? Racism, huh? How do I choose which side of the fence I want to be? I'm both. I have no choice. And so I was able to adapt things, learn skills, and come back and commit to my community here and donate my time, my love, and help my community. So anything that I acquired, whether it was a skill set, whether it was experience, whether it was just learning how to survive in major cities, like I had nobody in Philly. I moved to Philly when I was 16 without knowing a single person and put myself in college and stayed after 9/11. I firsthand witnessed 9/11. I was living in Brooklyn and I was a commuter. My first 2 years, I would commute back and forth. It was the only family I had on the East Coast. And so all of those life experiences just made me realize the value of what community is. Community could be your coworkers. Community could be the people that you pick up ball with. They could be the people you play chess with in the park. They can be your brothers and sisters that pray over you. They can be the people that feed you. They could be the people that you go to for counsel. So to me, community is a connection with another individual. And it's kind of like the more that are gathered there, the more resources you have to pull from, and it breaks down barriers. And when you have a community and you fit with multiple communities, you're breaking barriers and you're breaking down all these stereotypes about people because you're building off of love. So to me, community runs really, really deep. And some people can say I'm a survivor. Other people can say I'm a victim. Other people can say I'm an inspiration for them. At the end of the day, I'm God's child and I'm going to walk with God's love. And no matter what I do, I'm always going to put God first. And my impact came from several communities. And the inspiration I want to provide, I want to touch all of those communities and more.
Just just want to let it marinate because what you said that was so awesome. I wrote it down actually. You choose your community. I love that. And also you grow and nurture your community as well. And it reminds me of something that I often say, is check your web, not
Hmm.
just your circle, right? Because your circle, it could be you could be on two different points of that circle and never really connect, but your web, everything's intertwined. So check your web
Hmm.
and that community, what you're a part of, and giving back to that. And also when you talked about your accident and getting hit by the car, when you said that, I was like, you said X-ray. I was like, oh yeah, because I share my story oftentimes in spaces. But in 2017, I had rode motorcycles for years, and so my motorcycle at the time, I was hit. And so before 2017, you do the surveys at the doctor's office, ever broken a bone, ever surgery, blood transfusion. It was no, 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 no. And in one Sunday afternoon, all that changed to yes, 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 yes. So definitely can relate, and that resonates with me when you talked about that, the X-rays and being still and multiple times. So definitely. Liz, I just love how you explain that too with community, though. It just take going back to that, how you talked about community too. I hear in even what you said, community is your experiences, is what it's almost like that perfect recipe, right? Like what you put in this recipe to make that beautiful cake. That's that community cake, right? It's changing up the recipes, and going with the experience that you had in life. And so you mentioned all of your experiences and how it's had an impact on what you do and how you show up and how you add value to every space that you're a part of. So, as an adult, what does that impact mean to you, or what does it mean to you when you think about, okay, you wake up every morning, I want to make an impact today? What does that mean for you?
Impact was something I never chased. I still don't chase impact, because if you chase impact, then you're setting yourself to a certain bar and you're consciously saying, this is what I want to do. Impact is
Mm,
something that it's like a tattoo, or it's like a stamp. That stamp, it's been processed. Here you go. What's next? It's not a box to me. I'm alive because of God. I breathe because of God. My journey, every day, my journey continues to be another step that I never saw, like, for example, I have an autoimmune disease. It took me 6.5 years to get an official diagnosis, but from the time it presented itself until I was officially diagnosed was 8 years. I work in healthcare. I work at some of the best hospitals in the country. Let that marinate. I'm around resources and people all the time, but I could not get an official diagnosis. And it's like, whoa, what does that mean? And so when we talk about impact, your incident that took place on a Sunday, and you're a walking miracle, because a lot of people they don't survive motorcycle accidents, or they're
mhm.
severely disfigured, or they have severe handicaps and changes. So, life can change in a millisecond. And just like with your motorcycle accident, it wasn't your fault. You were hit by another vehicle. And so things happen to us that impacts us. But when we consciously make the decision to live a certain way, to be open a certain way, to look at life a certain way, we inspire. And so by being an inspiration and choosing to be a light versus a grumpy, dark cloud, then that
Mhm.
impact touches countless people, because we're not striving to do it. We know that based on our behavior and how we engage daily and how we conduct and carry ourselves, that impact and those impressions will be made. They often say the first impression is the most valuable impression. I can agree that that's a very valuable thing. But when you're laying on that table and someone's telling you, hold still, don't move, and they twist your arm and you haven't gotten pain meds and you don't know if you have an open fracture or if your leg is still attached to your body, that's not a good impression. Like, it's not a good impression. You're in
Right.
pain. You're in shock. You're like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Stop touching me. I don't know what happened. You're hurting me. And their concept is, we're trying to help you. And so impressions, they go both ways. And I think that the impact that we leave resonates with people based on the overall experience of their impression of us. And we have to consciously submit to being a better individual each day and put our pride completely to the side. We have to put our pride completely on the sidelines and use a little bit of grace and a lot of humbleness
Mm.
and just say, how can I relate to this person so that impact can have a lasting impression? And I think if we shift our focus to that, then we won't get so caught up on how do I make an impact? Because things impact us every day. Right now, there's a law. Don't get me quoting things on here, but there's a law that was released. So as a patient, you get your medical test results before your doctor has a chance to break them down into layman's terms. So if they see something that potentially could be cancerous and you had no clue, that could be showing up in your electronic medical record before your doctor breaks it down to you. That's devastating to a layman who doesn't know what these terms mean. It's devastating to know that a spot on your body could be melanoma and you're just thinking, am I going to die? Did they just sign my death sentence? That impact and that stain and that pain does not go away. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So impact has so many heavy hitters. You don't know what type of knockout you're about to get hit with, but you can choose to get back up. You can choose to say, you know what? I want to change the tone and the dynamic of this. And I want it to be an impression. I want it to have a lasting impact on you. I want it to be an experience. And I think shifting our mindset to putting that together, an impact and an impression, making it an experience, will have a better all end result.
I love that you put impression in there with impact because it's so true. And even the way you broke that down, you'll see me often, no matter what I'm doing. If I'm watching a YouTube video, doing an interview, anything that I'm in a space, I have my notes ready because I love to remember certain things that jump out to me. And when you said shift your focus, I think that's so huge, right? And even as a person showing up wanting to make an impact, right? It's like shift your focus. What is that? What's the why behind that? And what is the impression that you want to leave on people? Because like you said, so many things impact us. You know, I can sit here and we can talk about the different things I see and go through all the five senses, right? And all these things can have an impact on me. But what's that impression that is leaving with me? Just amazing. And see, here's the thing too. I was so looking forward to this because again, it's certain people whose passion comes out into every word that comes from their lips. So your passion is always felt in everything that you do. So you talked about being in the medical field. So what do you do like professionally? What's life every day professionally, and how do you think that's making an impact?
That's a heavy one. So briefly, one aspect of my childhood that I didn't talk about is my father always had a 35 millimeter camera connected to his hand. Tragically, the house that I grew up in was destroyed in a house fire. That's what prompted my move back to Seattle. So everything that I ever knew to be a safe haven, completely ashes. And that was hard because so many memories were lost. Like my father's house was like a treasure chest. It was like the vault. It was all safe there, you know, things I never took to the East Coast because I had not purchased a home or a permanent house. And, you know, they were all lost, generations of stuff and photographs. So I document everything. I take pictures of everything. I went to art school and I started my career in art school. And the reason I went into art school to take pictures is I wanted to learn how to tell people's stories. That was the reason I got into television and film and digital media. I wanted to communicate other people's stories because I've met so many people in my life that quote unquote do not look like what they've been through. but their stories were so, so, so significant that I wanted the world to know about them. What I learned in that process is, and this was before social media and the aspects of technology that we have now. I graduated with my first college degree in '05 in video production. You created storyboards, we wrote them out, we drew them up, we had a script, we had a plot, we had characters, we had a beginning, a middle, and an end. You learn how to meet people where they are. You learn how to see what makes them tick. You find out what's valuable to them. And so I had a shift. I wanted to be a mom, and I didn't want to work 18 hours a day, and I wanted to be a wife, and I wanted to be able to be there. And so in that industry, it's laborious work, a lot of hours going to the things that we see on TV. So I wanted the pictures that I took to make a difference. They say a singular picture is worth 1,000 words. In 2008 or 2009, I wrote a blog entry requesting prayer and asking people to pray for me because I wanted the pictures that I took to be able to save lives. So I know, and I don't even need to talk to you about your medical, but I know you've had more than one chest x-ray just because you were a motorcycle accident. I know you've had a chest x-ray. So prior to your accident, no. Well, anybody who comes into a hospital that's an inpatient, 95% of those people will have at least one form of diagnostic imaging, mainly a chest x-ray. As a x-ray technologist, it's the most mundane study you'll ever do. It's like brushing your teeth. Like, you do so many of them a day. But the key is they're so valuable and there's so much information in them that every single time you ask a person to take a breath, blow it out, take another breath and hold it, and you hear that buzz to take that x-ray, you have to put the same amount of precision, the same amount of attention to detail to make sure you have all of the appropriate anatomy in there. Because what a trained eye can see can add time to a person's life, enhance the quality of life they have, and give the loved ones who love them more time to spend and cherish with them. So I wrote a blog back then requesting people to pray for me as I applied for school. I've never gone to so many interviews and taken so many tests to get into it. I sat in rooms with people, 8, 9 people interviewing me. You went to art school. This is medicine. It could kill you. Radiation's dangerous. They're not the same. No, they are the same. They are the same. X-ray was done on film. You processed and printed it the same way you processed and printed 35 millimeter film or any film. The chemicals were the same. The process was the same. One is utilizing sunlight as a form of radiation. The other one is using radiation itself, but you have a composition of a picture. So what I do professionally is I fine-tune my skill sets. I went to X-ray school, and immediately, I volunteered at a hospital, went through my x-ray program, did everything I could, learn how to start IVs and stuff as a student. I knew I wanted to go into CT. I knew that that's the modality I wanted to, because the creative part of my brain, you can do 3D modeling of the bones, you can see the heart in real time, you can see the blood vessels in real time. X-rays are kind of boring. They're black and white. They're important, but they're kind of boring. And with CT, it's more like a real life image. It's a full reconstructed image of the anatomy. You can see all your organs, you can see your blood system. So when I walked in to shadow that department, I was like a kid in the candy store. I was like, I'm going to become one of these technologists. So I fast tracked my career, and I had amazing mentors and amazing coaches and an amazing team of people. And I put my work in. I am a registered X-ray technologist, which is your primary. And in order to be a CT tech, you have to have that registration first. And then I took my CT boards, and it allows me to work with trauma patients. It allows me to do more serious studies when people are having strokes, when they're having heart attacks and they need to know what's going on, if they're having pulmonary embolisms, like a blood clot in their lungs. So my skill set now is taking one picture, making that actually about 1,000 pictures for the average study, to give to a trained physician, a radiologist, so they can see what the abnormalities are in that person, or any pathologies like illness or something that's wrong. Maybe it's a birth defect or an injury. And that can be worked into a treatment for that team so they can create a plan of action and deliver it to that patient. So I'm hands on with my patient. With this global pandemic, you can't see this. My patients don't even know what my face looks like. I have an autoimmune disease, so I have to protect myself because I'm immune compromised. I have to be in masks. My eyes are covered. My hair is covered. They wouldn't even know that my hair is as long as it is. They wouldn't even recognize me if I walked past them. But I have the privilege and the honor to take care of my community. I work at the hospital that I was born at. I work at the hospital my mother gets treated at. And up until tomorrow's my last day at my full-time job, I have worked at the largest center here and provided care. I have seen extended relatives that were, like my aunt or like my cousin and stuff
Mhm.
at my hospital. I've taken care of people that educated me. I've taken care of my friends' loved ones. I've taken care of my friends. I have been in the room when loved ones are having a child. I've been in the room when they've called time of death of people. So at my main full-time job, I've seen the entire circle of life. And what I've always told people is I have a front row seat at the birthplace of miracles. I go to work with a team of people every single day that put forth their best foot, their best mind, and they do everything that they can to find a solution for a problem and provide the best outcome to each patient every day. I love, love, love what I do. I am so humbled, so grateful, and just so thankful that God has given me this ability to have this skill set, to take a hobby, a passion, and tell people stories so doctors can help them. And so I love what I do. That's what I presently do, but I'm transitioning to a different platform so I can reach a larger audience.
Wow, that blog post. What was you said 2008? I think 2008, 2009. What was the post about? What did you ask? Because
I
fast
asked
forward,
for
and it's like you.
prayer. I said, I can send it to you. I asked for prayer. I wanted the pictures that I took to make a difference. I wanted the pictures that I took to add quality of life to people. I didn't want them to be used for entertainment. I didn't want them to be used in like a sitcom or a story or a series that we laugh. Those pictures, I wanted my time to be meaningful, and I wanted my pictures that I took to have meaning. So if they say a picture's worth 1,000 words in a single x-ray or a single CAT scan, there's people in our Next Level Speakers Academy that will tell you incidental findings or a CAT scan, or
Mhm.
going into the doctor's office, inform them of changes that were going into their body, whether they had immediate surgery that saved their lives or they're going through treatments. But there's a lot of people in the Next Level Speakers Academy. It's October. One mammogram or one MRI of the breast can determine if a person, man or a woman, has breast cancer. So I work under the umbrella of diagnostic imaging. And in that community, you have ultrasound, x-ray, CT, MRI, nuclear medicine, radiation therapy, interventional. You have a lot of different ways that images are acquired for people.
Yeah, and I think for everybody watching, that's the importance of being intentional with your words and your prayers and what you ask for, because literally, I mean, just to the very specific words of what you said, that's what you've been doing for these years, where the images and the pictures that you take make an impact every day and even save lives many times. So that's so amazing. And that's why I asked that, because it's like, wow, look at that, fast forward to is exactly what you do. So we mentioned it. We've both met. We met in the Next Level Speakers Academy, and there's so many different groups and like I say, organizations you can be a part of through social media and online and the internet. And I think with the pandemic, one of those things is we've had the opportunity to meet more people in different areas of life and walks of life, because so much is virtual now. And so whereas you would go to maybe an event in person and maybe meet some people from the surrounding area, now we're connecting with people from all over the world. And
Hmm.
so I think what you're doing now is even amazing from week to week. So let's talk about how you're showing up now on social media and what you have going on in terms of how you're using your platform.
So social media, I probably sound like a hypocrite because I went to school for digital media, had a degree in it before IG and social media were born. I had a really negative experience about 9, 10 years ago, and I just deleted my account. Like, boom. I had no interest in social media. It's not personable. It's very, very just, it's not in person. There's that connection that you're missing. And so I deleted my account. I had no reason to have a social media account. I've been in many rooms and people are like, what's your Twitter? What's your IG? What's your Facebook? And I'm like, here's my phone number. It's been the same for many years. Here's my email address. Give me a buzz. And they're just like, huh? Like, where do you live? What rock are you under? And so
Right.
the word inspire and motivate, my presence on IG started from a conversation on the 30th of December. I was talking to someone about their impact of their food because I'm a foodie and I love food. And I was like, you need to get online. And so I made a challenge. I said a picture a day for every day of the year of something you ate or made. And they said, well, if I do it, you got to get on social media because you take pictures of everything. And I was like, fine. So I didn't understand the power of IG. I didn't understand the business side of IG. I didn't understand the fraud of IG. I didn't understand what's IG. I didn't even know how to make a live or a story for like 2 months, and like IG has totally changed my life for the good and the bad. I'm not sure if you've recently been on my weeklies, but my identity was recently stolen.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened because of an IG connection. Now, it's my own fault. I can admit that or whatever. And I can take accountability and responsibility. But I learned that I was targeted because of my platform. I learned that because I made a video about surviving child sex abuse, that I was targeted. And so now I'm up against a person or people or an organization that are master manipulators that, do this all the time. And that was so discouraging. But to me, that was an attack. That was a discouragement sent my way to stop me. In every other aspect, IG has changed my life in so many ways, so many ways. I came across Jeremy Anderson and I listened to him and I was like, wow. I was like, being a motivational speaker, being an inspirational speaker, being a youth inspirational speaker, all great things. I didn't care about any of that. I cared about the man that he was. In every aspect of his life, he's consistent. And the number one thing that's important to him is God. Number two thing is his wife. Number three thing is his family and his kids. After that, it's impact, community, inspiring, leaving a legacy, helping others
Mm-hmm.
achieve their goals. But on a personal level, I can identify with him being a man of God and wanting those things. And so I made a choice. About 3 years ago, I started talking about writing a book about two significant events in my life. And based on this last series of identity theft, I'm going to actually add it to my memoir. And I'm writing a memoir, and it's called Protectors That Betray. And, that's in the long time, 2 to 4 year work down the road. But in the short term, I needed to invest in myself. I got fed up with a lot of things, and I really wanted to start educating people about ancestral child sex abuse. I wanted to raise awareness about trauma. I wanted to wear awareness about how do you transition from victim to survivor, no matter what type of victim you were. it's a skill set. It requires a certain amount of work that you have to do yourself, but it also requires love, community, and support to get you to that other side. And so, because I work with patients every single day, I work 6 to 7 days a week. I've been doing it for 10 years. There's not much I haven't seen in the emergency room or in the inpatient center. There isn't much I haven't seen. And to me, being at the front row of a place where miracles happen every day, every one of those encounters and every one of those experiences, I'm grateful for. I'm grateful God puts me in that room. I'm grateful to be in that room with those people. I'm grateful for my training. I trust my training and I'm grateful for my experience. And I want to go to a larger audience and I want to show people that no matter what you've experienced, whether it was something that quote unquote you caused, which very little things when you're a victim you cause, something that happened to you, or if your life changed in a split second, whether it was illness, an accident, a death, a catastrophic natural event, a pandemic or a terrorist attack, anything, all of those things can change who we are. But having that desire to outgrow that negative experience and finding the positive in that and delivering that positive message. When I look back on my life, the people who get to know me, they're just like, how did you get to where you are? I'm stubborn. I'm determined. And
Yeah,
there's so
love
much
it.
to this world that I want to see, but I got here because of my belief in God. I got here because God brought me here. I got here because I have the support system to help me conquer whatever challenges I'm faced with. And I got here because I developed a system many years ago. I developed a system that has allowed me to successfully get through anything I've ever been faced with. And I'm confident that those 7 skills can help anybody, no matter if they're a man or a woman, no matter how old they are, no matter what they're going through. I assure you, at least 5 of those things any person can apply to their life.
Love it. I love that. So you talked about before um, a change that's coming, but I guess with everything you have going on and the value that you add to your community on a daily basis, whether it is with your work, with social media, your lives that are amazing, always something that I think is so timely. And even when you were talking earlier, I think what's important for people to realize is one, even when you talked about Jeremy Anderson, I think is one, being consistent with who
Mhm.
you are and what you believe in. Because I tell people all the time, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. No, no, no. You have you. You have
Mhm.
everything that God put in you. So when you show up
Mhm.
like that as your authentic and unapologetic self, the people who need your message, the people that need your light, your love, what you bring will come because you're putting out your true self.
Mhm.
So with all that being said, and just everything we've talked about, the big question, the dum, what's next for you, Liz? What's next for you in your journey and what you're doing?
So, to bring that together with your last question, social media has enabled me connections. It's enabled me to meet people, to see how much of a need there is, as well as just meet people. Like that weekend in Atlanta with the Next Level Speakers Conference, life changed forever, forever. The energy in that room, the opportunities just to meet people, to be in the presence of good company, and to understand that we're not competing, we're on the same assignment. And that's to spread different messages, to gather resources together so we can show others that there is a light at the end of any darkness, that after every storm, the sun will rise again. And that's what that whole movement's about taking whatever experiences we collectively have and packaging them together to show others that, hey, you can be older than me, you can be younger than me, your skin can be different than me, but here is a blueprint to get you to the next step, that you are not lost, that you are not hopeless, and that there is purpose on your life, and your life is beautiful. You are beautifully made as you are. And so I think for me personally, Still learning how to use Instagram, still learning the different platforms, still building my community. But I've made accountability commitments. I've made commitments with others to either A, go on their platform. Thank you again for this invitation to have impactful conversation. Thank you so much. But to get on as many platforms as I can. My life experience is not defined by being a survivor of ancestral child sex abuse. I am not defined because I am a lupus warrior. I am not defined because I have been a married woman and now I'm divorced. I am not defined by those things. Those are just characteristics of who I am and what I have to offer. But what I have to offer to this world is passion, commitment, and dedication. That as long as I am breathing, I will be talking. And as long as I am talking, I want the content and the message to provide hope that no matter how dark your hour is, there is always light. And no matter what you're going through, no matter how painful the internal pain is or the physical pain, you will and you do have the ability to get through it. A lot of people don't understand what chronic pain is. So when people say, oh, you'll get better, that's not physically true for everybody. But having the mindset and the belief in yourself to know how to manage that pain and to manage the circumstance is how you will get through it. So I want to use social media to springboard my message to as many people in many places that I can. And the next part for me, which tomorrow is, I was on call last night. Tomorrow is my last day at my full-time job. I gave my notice and my prayers came true. I prayed that God would provide me access to take care of my financial responsibilities with less time so I could focus more on my brand, so I could be obedient to self and invest in myself and really get my business going and started so I can make change for community and that I can be a woman, a face of hope and inspiration for other people. And that I can show people in many different walks the skills that they need and the steps that they can take to overcome anything so they can pursue their passion and they can be the best version of themselves and the healthiest version of themselves. So upcoming is a book that I like to title under self-improvement. Self-help is probably where it'll be shelved, but it's a book that outlines 7 steps that I've used time and time and time again religiously to go through the negative, the positive, and the celebrations in life. And it's helped me develop a system that is so innate to me at this point that I don't even have to think about it. It's just the way my brain goes down that checklist, boom, 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 boom. And it talks a lot about the things that we talked about throughout this conversation and how to implement them and the importance of them. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, a non-Christian, an atheist, if you believe in something else, it doesn't matter. You can identify with these pillars. You can identify with this blueprint, and you can take this blueprint and draw up your own strategy and how to implement it. And that way you'll have another key to success. And you'll also protect your integrity because you'll realize your self-worth. No one can tell you how valuable you are until you believe in your own value, until you can see yourself in the mirror, broken, hurt, and injured, and find yourself whole, healed, and ready to make moves. That has to be done internally. Once you make those moves and you heal from any trauma or any pain, then whatever you want in life is yours. It doesn't matter. You can be a mechanic, a plumber, you can be the next CEO of the next invention. You can be on the next mission to Mars or to the moon. It doesn't matter what you want. Anything that you want, you can achieve. And I just want to be a face to people that they can know that no matter what life throws at you, if you have the right attitude and the right hunger, you will always know that your situation, you are not alone. You are not alone in your situation. And when 2 or more come together, powerful things can happen. And so I just want people to know I'm here for them, that I'm committed to doing this for life. I'm committed to educating and informing people and providing that light. I want to be that lighthouse on shore that when you're at sea and you feel lost and weary, that you know that there's a destination and land is approaching. And I want you to know there's safe passage.
Oh, that's awesome. Whole, heal, and ready to make moves. And that I think is so needed in today, in the time that we're in. So thank you. Thank you for, again, how you show up every day. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I truly, truly appreciate you. I so I'm not always on the calls, and I can remember it had been a couple of weeks since I was on a call. And the first one I got on, I think it was your first call. And like I said, again, your energy, your passion, just that first time, I think that day you probably gain a lot of more people that's going to keep up with what Liz has going on, because it's like she is on fire. So I love it. Again, everything, your live, so enjoying that, everyone I can catch. And even with that, your first one, I'll tell you, Liz, this is how long I've been rocking with your lives too. I think your first one, you were at a park. You were at a park, like a theme park or whatever, and you were walking. You just said, I'm doing live. I'm going to do this more. And I'm just seeing just how you're showing up consistently and evolving. So I love it. And I appreciate you for that. I truly do.
You know, I don't know which phone call you heard me on, but it's really funny. So the first live that I did on IG, you can go back to my stories or I can send it to you. That day I did the 5 minute with Brad and Ben, and you don't know the rules, you don't know what's going on. And I just stopped. Everyone was like, that was a cliffhanger, like, give me more. So in the spirit of giving more, I did a 30-minute live and publicly shared for the first time in my life the details of what happened to me. 2 weeks later, I published a paper going into extensive details about my abuse. And so that was, they say, you know, the best way to get in the deep end is dive in, right? I just jumped right in. And then I kind of pedaled backwards because I was like, okay, that was a 30-minute. Hi, this is Elizabeth. How are you doing today? This is my story. And then I do a lot of stuff about lupus. A lot of people think that my speaking is about lupus. I live lupus every day. Like my face right now, I'm in the middle of a flare. And so, you know, I have the butterfly rash, I have the swollen joints right now, but I have to show up. And when I was at that theme park, the reason I wanted to pause, I had an opportunity to be on somebody else's podcast. And God is so good that rather than driving 3 hours back to the hotel, my cousin had a friend who lived 2 miles from the theme park who was a professional podcaster, full studio setup. So I went straight there, did this live podcast, and it was amazing. I went on Go Getters. I was on his, and it was just amazing. And I was like, God is moving in so many ways. And for whoever doesn't believe in God, I hope that when you watch these segments with Coach Mike, you see how God moves in people's lives and you see the testimony of their life. And it just makes you curious to know which God we're talking about, because God is so powerful. Everything that I have prayed for is coming together, and I'm just hungry and I'm grateful. And I'm super excited. So I don't know which phone call you heard me on, but everything from day one, you've always been so supportive. You've always sent encouraging messages. You've participated with Dr. Sam and I's weekly lives. We try to give a snippet of information once a week to our audiences, covering a multitude of topics. And so I just want to say thank you for A, what you're doing in your community. B, thank you for having impactful conversations. And C, thank you for being an outlet for me to be on and allowing me to share my story and my plans. And most importantly, thank you for your love, support, and prayers.
No problem, for sure. And again, that same thing, I'm going to extend that to everybody watching. Thank you. Make sure you check out Liz and everything that she has going on. I'll put some information in the description. Liz, thank you again. And don't forget to subscribe, share, comment. Let us know what you thought about the conversation, any feedback, any questions. Let us know in the comments, and tell someone about it. Tell your mama, tell your daddy, your uncle, your auntie, your cousin, your friends, your
All of
coworkers.
them.
Tell them about the channel.
Tell
Everybody,
all of
we
them.
appreciate y'all. Yes, tell them all. Thank you all, and we'll see y'all next time on another impactful conversations. Peace.